Yeah, and someone threw away all of our paperwork here that shows us exactly what we need to do. Yes, I don't know whoever put this in. There's none of the paperwork. And then I looked in here to see.
Isn't that paperwork right there?
No, that's not it.
Underneath, where's
I
the,
know.
where's the laptop? The municipal court?
Oh, I put it in the municipal court after the Zoom.
Is it on the bottom of that?
No, there's like 4 sheets. How are you?
Is this, you gotta find out if this is gonna work. Like,
Sandy, I'm gonna go. Oh, it's working. It's showing green. I just saw it. It's just showing green. Let me go live on YouTube. That's not nice. It's on YouTube.
good,
So
how are you?
now,
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm going right now.
Yeah, it's.
I'll tell you what, the hottest.
oh, and there's no.
Yep.
I quit once before, for a year. And on the 1-year anniversary of me quitting smoking to the day, I had a heart attack and they put 2 stents in.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
I've seen it.
So my grandma-
heard that.
May 6th, 2008, I had a heart attack. I quit smoking May 6th, 2007.
Wow.
I've heard that. People have quit and then all of a sudden they find out they either have cancer or they
Same
have a
with my
heart attack or
grandmother.
this or that.
She smoked
I'm
since she
like-
was 16 years old. She's 95 right now. She quit and she got a collapsed lung and she goes, that's it, I'm never quitting again. She still smokes at 95.
That's not right.
Yeah, so can you just, I'm gonna go back here, unmute it. And just, can you like tap? Let me see if I can. I don't know if it's my phone. Orange County Council. Oh, that's the wrong meeting.
The manager will come in and just take care of this stuff right now. So if we all could rise for the
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't think I have a moment of silence.
Get a Sharpie for you.
This is question in the back. So, trying to carry a little time. I'm just right now not doing anything, sorry. I wanted to get that out of the way. I'm still waiting for the manager. Which is who's right, just walk. Okay.
these hot. These broadcast.
Okay, now you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
There you go. So welcome to tonight's legislative workshop. We have our legislators here and we are, Mr. Sullivan, we did the Pledge of Allegiance already. And
Sorry.
no apology needed. And we can start with the only agenda item, which tonight is a very ambiguous one. It's discussion and action regarding 2025 legislative priorities. And if we have any, Sullivan, you have, I think, actual printout of them.
Yes, I do, Mr. President.
So the floor is yours and we'll follow your lead.
Sure. So the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns has put together some proposed legislation that they will be submitting this year that they would like the legislators to take action upon. The first one is regarding the maximum levy, tax levy. And I don't, can I make copies of this for the
Absolutely.
legislators because the legislators, because
You mean
I
right
would-
now?
I'd have to, no, afterwards. Or
Of
I can
course.
actually send it to them electronically because I
Yes.
do have an electronic
And
copy of it.
would it be just the House bill you guys want, or do you want all of that to come towards you?
I'm sorry.
We have it in our email.
Yeah, I think they sent it to us.
Did they send it, the league send it to you? So yeah, the first one is 44-5-2, which is the levy and the assessment of local taxes. That's what that, there's
Let me answer your
some
question. I'll
language
be right.
change, sure.
We're going to be sending you our list of legislation that we agree with the League of City and Towns on, and we'll be asking for your support in the legislature for the town of Warren.
You'll do that in the form of a resolution?
No, we're gonna do it in the form of another email,
Okay, perfect.
unless you want resolutions on all of them.
Pretty much only if it applies to Warren specifically. If you're asking for something for Warren, then we need a resolution, but if it's just an endorsement of this list, we don't need a resolution.
Well, I think this segment of the league's list has to do with Warren. Or we are considering it valuable to the town of Warren, so we're piggyback on it then. So we probably will be putting these in the form of a resolution, at which point they will be sent to you.
Yes, I think we would be following the recommendations of the league if they would request a resolution from each city and town that if once we have a discussion here, if the body supports it, then we would adopt a resolution.
They'll be on the agenda of February's meeting. We'll have a discussion with Anthony, we'll put them on the agenda, and we will send them to the House if there's a majority support for the legislation. And you will get them in the form of resolutions from the town of Warren.
Perfect, thank you.
The,
What is the maximum tax levy?
So right now, it's currently 4.25, right? Just four?
Which,
It's
which
for-
one is it? You're not in order of with the email that we sent, just the order that they're in.
so the printout that I have, Madam Vice President, is maximum levy. It's chapter 44-5-2, which is related to tax exemption exemptions for new housing units.
I see it here.
So the league, the league wants a bill that basically says you can go above the 4% for all the reasons you can go above the 4% that's in law now. But they also want a special carve out that if your housing base grows, if you have to provide more services because your housing base grows substantially. They described it as exclusively related to the development of new housing units, new construction and conversion.
So,
Yeah, Joe.
yes.
So it's for new housing, so that cap still remains at 4% for everyone else. If somebody that built, and all of a sudden had to tie into the sewer and had an additional expense to taxpayers, that's where this 5.5 would kick in, correct?
Basically, or
School.
for instance, in Barrington, they're toying around with an idea of adding 250, but some
Yeah.
humongous number of housing
325.
units up inside.
Mhm.
And the league envisions that if a town undergoes that kind of expansion that quick, they would need to have extra money to provide the extra services required by all those units.
Yeah, but it would be taxing those people, not everyone else.
So it would be-
No,
it'd be the
this
whole
is,
town.
this is the cap where every year our budget can't go higher than 4% in the previous year without auditor general approval.
Correct, but this is only if we have a severe expansion or say something with like the schools or a major development where we have to spend $4 million to connect the sewer. Only at that time would you be allowed to go to the 5.5. Am I correct with that?
That's what the league envisions.
Okay.
It would give you permission to jump above the 4% without having to jump through the hoops to get.
But it stops at 5.5. Is what
Well, I
that-
don't have the bill in front of me, but this, I'm just looking at
I
the.
think there's a cap.
Yeah.
It's a 1.5%.
I mean, that sort of thing gives more flexibility to the cities and towns for like a real honest business reason. Why they-
Yeah, it's 5.5.
That's where I must have gotten the 4.
Yeah.
So can we?
You can, Mr. Rego.
I'm not gonna agree with everything that I've read over here, but, so right now, when we go over that 4%, who do we send it to for permission to go over?
We
Is
asked.
it the auditor general?
The auditor
General,
general,
gen-
then
so,
they have to look at the reason.
right,
You
so,
have to supply a reason why you went over.
right, so right now, this is a safeguard to the taxpayers, the 4%. So if we had a good reason, we could go to them and ask for that exception anyways, correct?
We did last year.
Right, so the point in having this, even though it protects the towns, I don't know if it protects the taxpayers, and those are people I'm concerned about.
If I remember correctly, the auditor general approval is limited to certain situations.
Mhm.
You have a financial emergency, or
Mhm.
you had a big bill and you had some questions about the numbers. The auditor general says, okay, you guys have a bona fide financial issue. Just if there was a city or town out there that just for whatever reason wanted to go 5 instead of 4 some year, I think they have to go to the general assembly for that. So the auditor is there for certain carve outs, the general assembly is there as a backstop, and I think what the league wants here is another path to get beyond 4% without having to run to the general.
And a cap. So that they are capping it at the 5.5. And they're giving examples that it would be as the housing.
Jason, if you could just speak into the mic.
Oh, sorry.
You know why? Because they can't hear you on TV and it's kind of, thank you.
Okay. That's that one.
The next bill that the Rhode Island League is supporting is, or has sent out, is an amendment to 44-5-13.11 of the general laws to increase the tax on qualifying low-income housing from 8% to 10% of the property's previous year's gross scheduled rental income. The claim is that the act would maintain the provisions allowing municipalities to apply for a lesser percentage if they choose.
I read this and I couldn't make heads or tails out of this one.
Okay. Mr. Trombley.
Mr. Manager, currently in Warren, are there any properties that are subject to the 8% law as it currently stands?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
We do have a potential on Connecticut Avenue, which could put us into one of these categories. If that goes through.
Knock it straight to.
You mean the proposed housing?
The proposed
development?
housing, if that goes through and that comes up, it may put us in one of these situations where we have a severe expense that we're gonna incur because of that. So we don't have one currently, but there is a potential of us being in that realm of possibility.
I understand. Thank you, Councilman.
The next one I know is very concerning to the council, and that is amendment to the highways, maintenance of highways and sidewalks on state roads.
Yes.
And that's an amendment to section 24-5-1, maintenance of town highways. And the amendment is to turn that responsibility over to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Cleaning and maintenance
Right.
included but not limited to repairs,
I don't have it in front of me. I can't help you.
remediation.
Remediation.
Thank you. Remediation of dangerous or hazardous conditions of sidewalks along state highways and roads shall be the responsibility of the state, with the exception of snow and ice removal from the sidewalks.
Right.
So for example, look at this, what are we suggesting that the state should be doing?
We're asking the state to take back what they gave to us.
I think,
Currently, what happens is that when the state does improvements or implements a sidewalk, it becomes the responsibility of the town to maintain that particular sidewalk. And if the sidewalks become decrepit, then the liability is on the individual towns. So what this piece of legislation is saying, okay, DOT, we want you now to be responsible for the sidewalks. Go out there and get the plows and get whatever you can to clean these sidewalks up so that the liability falls on the state, not the individual towns.
But it does not cover snow and ice removal.
Well, yeah, it probably doesn't, but by the same token, it's from decrepit sidewalks.
Right.
And you don't think that the
No.
state is gonna buy into this?
No, I mean, well, I mean,
Nice.
the Senate, we passed it last year at the last day, at the last hour. And I don't think it's really gonna go anywhere.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was once a time where the state was responsible for the sidewalks. And
Probably
that's,
50 years ago.
yeah, so
Because when I was on the town council, we were responsible for.
we still were the town. So at some point, the state was, and they've given that back, that responsibility to the town. Mr. Rego?
So I like this. I think this opens the door, but the problem I have is that when it says for the annual cleaning, I mean, either they're gonna take it all or nothing. This thing of, they're not gonna take the responsibility, or they're gonna take it once a year and the town's not gonna do it, and nobody's gonna do it. So I would ask that if we do consider this, that we take out for the annual cleaning.
Well, the state does come through annually and clean the sidewalks on the state roads.
But either they're gonna do it all the time, or,
Well,
again,
I
if
don't
they're
wanna
doing it
lose the one
annually,
day
if
we
they're doing
get
it
either.
annually now, then what's the purpose of this?
Because
So-
they do it once.
Yeah.
This bill is asking them to take responsibility of the state sidewalks.
I
When they, as has been duly noted, when they come to town and do a sidewalk project, they're doing that with their state funds. And the caveat is they expect us to then be responsible for those sidewalks upkeeping from that day on.
so I agree. And that the annual maintenance is the sweeping when they come up with the brooms and the shovels to clean up the dirt off the sidewalks. I think the concern is right now is that the town is responsible for the maintenance. So if there's a pothole or a piece of a sidewalk missing and somebody trips and falls, which we have seen, the town is liable for the lawsuit. We have to defend that lawsuit because of the requirement, we are required to repair those sidewalks. And I think this bill is putting that back onto the state, on
Trying
state
to.
roads.
That's what that bill is asking the legislature to do for
I
us.
mean, another aspect that the state does is the state, upon request, will clean individual catch basins that exist on the state roads.
Yes. So I'm very happy for those things. Mr. Trombley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'd like to put this in, make an argument in favor of this based on terms of cost savings, because some cities and towns do not do proper maintenance and upkeep of their sidewalks, which means the state has to come in a decade or two and invest heavily in building new ones, constructing new ones. And I think it would probably save the state money in the long run if they had exclusive authority and responsibility to maintain them, because then they would be kept in good condition.
So what we're saying is we want you to fight for this one. We want this. Tell them we're counting on them.
Again, we'll be sending you a list that will be generated out of the council meeting.
Do you
on-
know who's sponsoring each of these pieces of legislation?
The interlocal.
I don't have this, I don't believe there is a sponsor yet.
Yeah,
Uh,
introduced
I-
by,
Have these been introduced?
Oh, yeah, it hasn't been, the list we have here, it hasn't been introduced yet.
So we would not know.
yeah.
Because
TBD.
usually what happens is that the league as a priority, the director will find sponsors on the House side and the Senate side.
I believe that's what the director is doing, the executive director is doing now, or he's working on it. The next piece of legislation is 28-9.1-10, which are factors to be considered by an arbitration board. And there are two items that the league has put in. One is that city or town charters or ordinances which prescribe or authorize management rights to direct employees of the city or town. And then the second item is that the city or town charters or ordinances which prescribe and authorize management rights to direct and employees of cities and towns. These are items to be considered during arbitration hearing.
Any comments on that?
Considered how? What are they trying to accomplish?
I'm sorry?
Considered how? What are they trying to accomplish when they want, at an arbitration, they want the arbitrator to consider management rights if it's in the charter of the town? So what does he want to consider? How those management rights might affect whatever is in dispute?
As part of the, when the arbitrator is, well, it says the arbitrator and police and fire arbitrations would take into account. So the arbitrator has the option, or the ability to take into account city and town charters and ordinances which provide for management rights to direct the employees of the city or town.
Wouldn't that need to be negotiated, if it's a union deal, wouldn't that need to be negotiated into the contract?
Well, I think the idea is that, no, the league would not want it to be negotiated, right? Because the league is looking out for the towns.
Correct, but what I'm saying is, well, we all know the legislature can void contracts of the pension system. However, could you pass a law that voids what somebody has in a 3-year contract?
Yeah.
Or would you make it so that that could, is there legislation that says that can't be in the contract? Would that open it up and say that it could be in the contract?
Basic principles, right? The General Assembly can declare a lot of things as void against public policy, right? So not that we would, but he can. And I think in this particular space, it's complicated. I think what the league is looking for is just they're looking for an edge in the negotiation, such that at an arbitration, the lawyers for the town can point to the charter and say, we have management rights in the charter, and the contract can't invade those management rights. That would be my guess.
That's how I read it.
And by the February meeting, Mr. DeSisto will have looked at all of this and be sitting right where you are now and giving us his legal position on these. Next, please.
The next is related to noise limits for motor vehicles. And the act would enable municipalities to install or use automatic systems to detect noise limit violations in order to enhance enforcement abilities and reduce noise violations statewide.
What prevents us from doing that right now, other than budget, like?
I'm sorry?
Because you're not authorized to.
Process.
There's no law that says a city or town can use a machine to measure noise in the intersection or somewhere in the town and then issue fines based on what the machine says. This was a bill last year. Mayor Smiley at Providence wanted this. He essentially wanted kind of, it's like a ban the box thing only for noise.
Yeah.
But you have to authorize the use of a system for that, a la the speed cameras and that sort of thing. And I can't speak for the Senate, but in the House Judiciary where it came up, there were a lot of questions about actually identifying the perpetrator. How does the machine do that? And so they're gonna come back around, I think, and take another run at it this year.
Because currently we have the ability to use the decibel reading with the police officer if there's a situation, but this, as you, yeah, for the points you're making, that's what this is about.
Do we have that big of a problem in Warren that we want to, what's scaring me on this is what's next? We're gonna ask to be able to put up red light cameras?
Well, again,
Speed
this is,
cameras?
if I can, this is a recommendation from the league to all of the towns that belong to their, the League of City and Towns. And it's up to us and getting an explanation from our legislators and senator. So no, this may not necessarily be something that fits us. Tonight is our trying on time. And we'll be entering the changing room.
I think
Next
in
month, or
Providence,
this month.
it's aimed at straight pipes on motorcycles. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the cars now have a growl to them. I mean, there's a lot of trucks that have a growl to them.
I saw a Subaru that was
Yeah, I
as
mean,
loud as Seekonk
they
Speedway.
sound
the other
like
day.
rockets now. So something is spurring this on, but again, we're not quite sure this may be what Warren wants, but thank you for the explanation. Ms. Cronin?
I mean, and if this should pass and everything, and we have the opportunity to do such a thing, like, this is certainly not going to be a budget priority for us to invest in this type of equipment.
Doesn't require you to do it. Just permits you.
It permits us to do it. It's not being funded by the state.
Correct.
Yeah,
No, it's most of
Yeah.
it's a vendor.
Yeah, all the
You
speed,
put the
all the
machine, you
speed
put the
cameras are
system
being
on,
sold by
and you get the
themselves.
money.
Let's.
Wow, that was,
Most
I was gonna say the vendor.
Legislation is enabling such that allows the town
vendor.
to buy in or buy out.
Yeah.
whether they want.
Correct. And gentlemen, if we can, let's go through the chair so they know who they're answering. And the audience on TV as well as in the room knows who's answering what. Mr. Sullivan?
The next item is relating to public property and works, labor and payment debts by contractors. The statute is 37-13-7. And this act would raise the minimum threshold when public works contracts are required by prevailing wage at their employees from $1,000 to $100,000. And this act would take, obviously, on passage.
Anything on that?
These prevailing wage bills are always controversial.
Sure.
The workers and their representatives in the unions like them, obviously, and the municipalities do not because they have to pay more for the work. So we fight it out in the process. We don't fight it out. We
Correct,
compromise.
you debate it out. And what I'm asking from, so the audience knows our process here wasn't described, but what we're doing is asking the legislators if they are familiar with any of these bills, if they know, or we're not holding them to their opinion. We're simply trying to figure out what all of this means to Warren and get a response from our legislators, what they feel they can share with us at the State House on the odds of this coming to help Warren.
It is helpful for me as a legislator to know how my municipal council feels about bills.
Absolutely.
We can't always get what we want in this process, as you know, but it is helpful certainly to get feedback from you on what we will face in the coming session.
Okay.
Part of the problem that people don't understand is that there's 2,400 bills per year that are being submitted. And those bills get submitted to the various committees. So if you're not on that particular committee, like Jason's on judiciary, so that has a lot of bills, so he's well equipped and understands the judicial aspects of it. I'm on the finance committee, though, and housing, June is on, but those types of tunnels are where our expertise is. So you've asked an innocuous bill, we may have no idea of what the process is, but if you let us know about it, then we can follow up and find that bill and follow its tracks to make sure that
Absolutely.
the changes you want can be implemented.
We're aware of the process, but good explanation. Mr. Rego.
That was a good explanation, but you know what? I've seen some bills, some of them that go through that I was very disappointed in. And how do we communicate before you pass these bills, before they go too far?
So whether a bill goes or doesn't go is in the hands of very few people in leadership. There's once the voting starts, you're at pains to stop something that's gotten because everything basically for 2-3 months has been red lighted or green lighted upstairs. But in May and June, that's when all the votes take place, the actual pass the bills. So the way to do it is identify the things you like and don't like, communicate ahead of time so we have a running list. And that way, when it's June 14th and we're getting together on a Saturday, we're going to start at 2, we're going to take 200 votes in a day or something like that. I know, and Rep. Speakman knows, and Senator Felag knows what to look out for. And hopefully we'll have been in a position to at least try to affect the outcome one way or the other, right? Consistent with the town's wishes, assuming we're on board as well, prior to the vote hitting the floor.
And we send those in the form of a resolution.
I'd like to have further discussion on that, but
Go right
like
ahead.
him, no, but I'd rather him finish what he's doing and then we can.
Okay.
That's okay, Joe.
And what I was also, everybody who is here tonight can also take the floor if you individually have something you would like to include in this discussion. Mr. Sullivan?
The next bill is from Chapter 45. It's a new statute, does not exist. And it's titled Reimbursement for Public Safety Training Expenses. And this act would establish a reimbursement system for the cost of training public safety personnel when they are hired by a different municipality or public safety agency within Rhode Island by requiring the hiring entity to reimburse the original employer for training-related expenses incurred within a 3-year period. The legislation ensures fairness and protects municipality investment and promotes fiscal responsibility.
What scenario is that aimed at?
So I can give you a scenario where an individual, an officer was hired here in Warren. He was sponsored to the Municipal Police Academy. The town of Warren paid for his medical and salary while he was in the Municipal Police Academy, paid for his uniforms when he came out. He worked for the town of Warren for 3 days and left to go to another municipality.
Poached.
This is a good bill.
Coached.
Yeah, and
I hear you.
without this coverage, the contacts that people make, even in the process, we think that this was kind of how it went down. He already knew what he was going to do on our dime.
Without it, it just creates the worst incentive system imaginable.
So I don't think this is sponsored by you guys, because we didn't send it to you, but we will be sending you a resolution because this is verbatim what unfortunately happened to us and we found out has happened to other towns. And we're not going to name names.
And there is a tiered reimbursement schedule as well. It's not, it's not 100% each year.
So the idea is that if the officer chooses, or the public safety person, right, goes to another town, then there's like a pro rata split on the training, depending on how much time the officer was in one place. or
Yes.
another, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the bill, it's 100% for the first year, then it goes down to 80 and then 60.
So the legal protection to keep that person with the municipality that sent them isn't there, as we found out. Any other questions? Yeah, that's,
This is a really good one.
Mr. Sullivan?
The next one is involving automatic speed cameras, enforcement in safety zones outside of school zones. So it's amendment to 31-14 -1. And this is a new section of that bill as well.
They want to expand the speed.
Basically, yes, want to be able to have safety zones. Safety zones would be declared by town council. Town council would, and there are certain factors that would determine what a safety zone is. And then the town or city would have the ability to install speed cameras in those areas.
I want to speak on that.
Mr. Rego?
So is this take all or not?
I'm sorry?
Is this like a take all, or can we decide what we want to support and not support?
It's enabling. So what the league is, the legislation the league wants is permission in the general laws for any city or town to set up a school zone style.
No, I understand that
Individual
part.
one,
Oh,
Whether or
oh,
not
yeah,
they're gonna
yeah.
support the whole package
Oh,
or individual
That's
ones.
my question. Do we have to support the whole package?
Wait a minute.
no, no.
Mr. Rego,
Go ahead.
this is a list that the league and city and town sent out.
Hmm.
We're using this opportunity to air it publicly.
Sure, but
On February's agenda, we will have what we feel.
Vote on them individually, correct?
I think if
Yes.
there's a resolution at the end that we would sign off on the whole thing. That was my question. We don't have to sign off on it.
No, we were gonna sign
Because,
off.
you know,
on
when I
it.
look at those cameras, it's the guy that's making cameras, making all the money. And it's like,
It's a cash grab. If it was that big of a safety concern, put a cruiser there.
yeah.
If it's
Well-
that big of a concern, put a cruiser there.
Okay.
You don't need a camera there.
Okay, let's not debate get caught in the weeds. So you have your answer?
Yeah.
Okay,
My recommendation
Mr.
would be
Felak,
for you
Senator.
to wait until those individual bills have been submitted. That way you can reference those individual bills by statute as to which ones you're supporting and which ones you may not be supporting.
thank you. So
Because if
this
you
won't
send a
be
general
happening.
statement,
This won't be
uh,
happening at the
that-
February
that's
meeting.
more difficult for us to try to figure out of the 2,400 bills, what bill you're talking about.
And thank you for pointing that out. I didn't have that knowledge. I was going to discuss this process with Mr. DeSisto and the manager leading up to the council meeting. And I'm sure that's what Anthony would have recommended. Because now that you say that, it refreshes my memory. In the past, waiting a time for more specificity on that bill and where that bill is in committee, how it's looking at and all of those state house things. So next.
That concludes the package that
Okay.
the league submitted.
So individually, any council members have anything they would like to share with our legislators? Mr. Trombley?
I have two things I'd like to share. I got some feedback from some constituents. First, I'm going to mention him by name because he allowed me to do so. Steve Machado, a volunteer firefighter from our Engine 6 out in Tuisset. He has been advocating for a long time at the federal level for a inclusion in the student loan forgiveness program for public service related to being in a volunteer fire department. And I think he brings up very good points that volunteer fire departments are struggling across the country to fill their ranks with qualified individuals and volunteers. And that's no less true in Rhode Island, not just in Warren, but in other volunteer towns and communities. So at the state level, we can't do some sort of student loan forgiveness, but what I was considering was potentially offering some sort of credit. And I'm thinking that the Wavemaker Fellowship, which gives some financial stipends to recently graduated individuals, including recently it's been amended to include teachers in STEM fields as well as medical professionals, could be extended further in the budget to include volunteer fire department or volunteer fire personnel across the state, which would incentivize people to join up, young people to fill these ranks, and hopefully really contribute to their communities. So that is number one. And then the second one I heard during voting season, during the election, many people liked the early voting system that we had, and I think we even had record turnout for early voting in the 2024 election. But I heard from a number of constituents who expressed that they were unable to utilize it because it's always on a weekday. And they were suggesting that it would be a potential benefit to have early voting on weekends as well. But that puts municipalities into a strained position because it strains financial resources. So I was considering, or I'd like to suggest, that legislation might allow a pilot program or some sort of alternative where a municipality might have a fewer number of overall early voting days, but allow early voting on weekends, which might benefit certain communities, and leave it up to those communities to determine what they feel is appropriate. So those were my two thoughts based on feedback from constituents. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll say for the record that for folks who find themselves unable to early vote in person at town hall, there's always the option of obtaining a mail ballot and dropping it in the ballot box. If that idea that you just put out there has been talked about a lot amongst the legislators, I would just narrow it just by one piece. It has to be all or nothing, because you can't have different cities and towns with different voting days, particularly, it's the idea is that we're all voting in the same period with the same information that's available. And I think they have cities and towns be able to pick and choose at their discretion what's open, what's not open, would create problems, constitutional problems at the very least. So, but
if I may ask, though, to follow up on this,
Please.
because cities and towns do have different systems for some cities and towns have wards where you have specific candidates for specific sub areas. I was thinking it would be similar to that, but you think it would be just either two?
I just think on a statewide election,
Mhm.
well, I think the dates are declared by BOE,
Mhm.
right? And all the boards of canvassers of 39 cities and towns have to go by those dates. If Cranston's just doing a special election for Cranston only stuff, they can do whatever they want.
Mhm.
But it's the statewide elections and the presidential primaries and elections that I'm concerned about.
All right, well, sir, I am considered that. Thank you very much for the input.
Please.
So this is, as Rep. Knight says, this is often discussed. And the Secretary of State is committed to maximum voting days and hours. The clerks have a slightly different perspective on it. We met with the clerks last year around the same time, I believe. It is a financial burden. Overtime sometimes has to be paid on Saturdays. And I do believe there are some communities that have a Saturday vote. Is that?
I think it's like maybe Cranston.
Cranston.
The bigger ones, they will have a Saturday.
Yeah, and but they may close on an afternoon or something and open on a Saturday. So I understand what you're saying, and I hear the same thing. I think that may have to be worked out here in town. And I'm an advocate for the state pushing more money to the municipalities to fund these early voting. I know it is a financial stress, so we've been told by the speaker that there's no money. However, we can always ask for more money for the clerks to support, even without changing to Saturdays, because early voting I know it's a strain on staff but it's a very good idea.
So Rep. Speakman, what you just did is called taking the words out of my mouth.
Oh.
Because I believe all of the process that you're talking about, to me, is deaf ears until we figure out how to fund the mandate. Because, everybody wants people to vote on Saturdays, that's all great. Thank you. I don't need to reiterate, but that hits home right here, loud and clear. If we had the funding, we could do it all the time.
It's not only that either, it's just finding the people to work on weekends. People don't want to.
And that as well, but if that were our problem with a pile of money, then we'd try to figure that out. But it comes out of our budget, as you know, and becomes difficult. And then sometimes you look at the low numbers on some turnouts and the cost is rather high. So that money issue, in my opinion, is the hardest.
And with due
So
respect, you
thank
may
you.
want to check in with the clerk, who is an expert at these matters, and her fabulous staff.
Oh, she's the one who's told me about it.
Right, and also,
Us, I should
same day
say.
registration, I know, what I heard from the clerks in both the communities I represent was a tremendous hardship, created a lot of chaos and concern about the integrity of the process, which was fabulous, of course, because you worked really hard, but and again, the Secretary of State is not going to back off on same day registration, but some analysis of the situation to see if there's a better way to do it, so.
Because I know that you've discussed this issue, if we were testified, she would be doing this for us because she's the expert in this field. We just have to look at the cost when it comes in front of us, budget time, and it's always a hard number. Anyone else?
No,
Mr. Hanley.
my concern is the affordable housing issue. I mean, there's a lot of good intentions. But from what I've seen, and I see it firsthand from my job, there's a lot of stuff where it's make you feel good. Let's throw it on the wall and see what sticks. Somehow, some way, somebody has to figure out how to link all these benefits and the zoning bonuses, how to link it to a Rhode Island resident. Because all these units that come online, they go to the highest bidder. And guess what? Rhode Island residents aren't the highest bidder. They're the people from Quincy, they're the people from Brockton that are coming down here and snatching all these units as they open up because they're willing to pay $1,000 more than someone from Rhode Island can pay for. Somehow you got to figure out how to link it to Rhode Island residents. I've been told, well, you can't because it's against the law. But we do it with Section 8. We do it with senior housing. So there's got to be some way to do it. If they can do it with those two, even if we got to get our federal legislators involved, but that's the only way you're going to solve Rhode Island's housing problem is by focusing on Rhode Islanders, not just creating units, because the units are getting snatched up by out-of-staters who are willing to pay more money. That's my biggest concern.
A good one. And maybe we'll act on that in a resolution and send it up.
Along the same lines, we have a perfect example where sometimes legislation makes things worse. We all know we need more housing in general. Settlers Green is a perfect example. Those people bought that property with the intention of building homes on there prior to this comprehensive permitting process. And they were incentivized by your legislation to do what they did, what they're doing now. So it's become a real burden for all of us. So again, I think sometimes you're trying to do the right thing and it kind of backfires.
Why don't we not speak in specifics about that without a solicitor here?
Not specific,
No,
I think.
I'm saying don't. You
Right,
mentioned
right.
one development, so we'll just keep it at that. And
Okay.
overall, your point is well
Right.
taken.
Another issue is the lead paint issue. I
What
understand the lead paint issue.
Lead paint.
You know, we were just talking about funding. Do they have enough money? What about the taxpayers? Do they have enough money? This lead paint thing, I'm sure it's specific to certain areas, certain communities worse than others. But when you bring the whole state into play, again, we're talking about affordable housing. What happens? The landlords are passing it on to the tenants. So if we're really worried about people's finances, it's something we have to address. I called Matt Cabral today. I says, have we had any issues in town? He says, I don't know of any. And I would have thought that the building inspector, if there was an issue, somebody would have to be led.
I get letters from the hospital all the
Yeah.
time when they get a child. with a
So-
high blood level.
Yeah, so to penalize the whole state when it may be specific to an area, it just doesn't make any sense at all. You know, and these lead inspectors, you know, you may not have any lead on the property and they swipe the floor and all of a sudden they find lead that somebody brought in. And then the third point I'm gonna bring up to this, if you're really concerned about lead, your house should be inspected, your house should be inspected, his house, this town hall should be inspected. It shouldn't be just limited to rental properties. Everything should be inspected if we're really concerned about lead. And I'll let you speak on that
If you want to.
if you want to.
May I?
Sure, please.
So the lead law, there were 1,000 children afflicted with lead poisoning in Rhode Island last year. One's too many, in my view. We all know the consequences of lead poisoning, right? So the program is aggressive. You're right. It does affect landlords with rental properties. You're right about that. There is a shortage of lead inspectors. I don't think you mentioned that. We're working on that. the deadline for having your inspection complete was extended, and I believe there are no fines yet. Because I think that it was October 1st was when you were supposed to have your inspection done. And the deadline's been extended, and I think, John, you'd probably know more about this than I have, and there have been no fines issued because of the shortage of lead inspectors. I don't know the science behind it, but I do know that if you have covered up the lead and then there are cracks in the paint 2 years later, now you have lead again in the environment. So I'm in support of the goal, which is to have lead-free homes for everyone. I think the system the deadlines were too aggressive for this one. And again, there just aren't the lead inspectors. So that's what I know about the program. Again, I mean, maybe a little bit out of date from what I
So
know.
for those of you who don't know, Mr. Hanley is a building inspector by trade,
Building official.
building official.
So could you just speak to the point that why are they just targeting apartments, rentals? Why aren't they targeting every individual home?
Can I answer that question?
Yes, you're
And
speaking through.
Lead,
the chair.
lead, can I answer that question? Lead paint was outlawed in 1978. So any house built after 1978 is pretty much assumed to be lead-free because you couldn't buy the paint anymore. So that's why anything 1978 or later is exempt. I don't care if it's a 60 unit or a single unit. The other one is the reason why single-family homes are kind of left out of it is because they're more owner-occupied. So you're not gonna, you're not gonna have that much of a risk for a child exposure. In Pawtucket, we have one of the highest compliance rates for lead certificates in the state because we push it really, really, really hard. Because it's a nasty thing, Louis. And for a while there, I think if you lived in the property, you were exempt. That got taken out. And I think there was one other thing that got taken out. So it wasn't that much. In other words, if you owned a 6-unit, you had to have lead inspections already. It's just that they're getting a little more vigorous on enforcement.
I can
Again.
give you a shorter answer. As a renter, you're not in charge of the nuts and bolts of the house.
Correct.
So the innocent party is the renter. In order to maintain a secure household for that renter, it's the landlord's responsibility.
Again, I'm gonna go back to my argument. If a child goes into June's house, then goes to Jason's and then Wally's, and all their homes are built before 78, and then they walk into someone's apartment house and tracks in that lead that they got from their home, or even walks in this building. I mean, it's, again, I know. nothing's a-
That scenario actually doesn't play out. So
Yeah.
good point, but.
No,
that's-
no, it's a very good
But
point.
it's not, because
The-
they
What they,
aren't.
what they
wait, no,
inspect.
I don't know why I'm not controlling this.
Sorry.
Thank you. Next, so,
The only issue
Senator Phelan.
the only issue that we may be trying to address is those individuals that own a home prior to 1978 that can't afford to do the upgrades that are required, that there be some funds set aside to assist those individuals, because their only alternative is to raise the rent of their tenant. And that really doesn't help the housing issue if they have to raise the rent a couple of thousand a month, and it hurts the landlord in terms of trying to find financing to put that lead-free in place. And then also the tenant has to leave because they can't afford it.
Mr. Trombley.
I was gonna say exactly what Senator Phelan said, or substantially similar, so thank you.
I want to go back to it.
No.
You have the housing authority.
Louis, I'm serious. No, they heard you. This is kind of a light part of this meeting. We're gonna be out here at 7. If you have something particular to warrant, we'll gladly take it in a resolution. We'll then have legislative research connected to a bill. If that then happens, maybe they'll sponsor it. But right now, tonight, the debate on lead paint.
And you know how to find me. You have my number if you want to talk further about this.
Now I feel bad because I told you that, so now I'm gonna let you close with
Yeah,
your
just let
last
me close
question.
with it, because I
Go
kind
right
of feel
ahead.
bad that my time is very valuable. When I come up here, I don't like to waste it. But we get like the senior housing. But those are all seniors. Why does it apply to that too? Again, it's a lot of money that people have to pay for these inspections.
Yeah, I don't want seniors having exposure to lead either. It does more damage to the developing brains of children, but no one wants to be lead poisoned. Sorry, Rick.
But I believe it only happens in a rented apartment, and it's a security for that person you're talking about.
Can I jump in? I appreciate where you're coming from.
You can
Councilman.
close with this, please.
I appreciate where you're coming, Councilman. It is a cost. Lead paint has been outlawed in the state for decades. Yet, there is a group of people who own property and hold it out as a public accommodation for other people to inhabit and make money off of it, who have not fixed their lead problems for whatever reason, because it's expensive. The lead registry law was put in place because the General Assembly wants the children of the state to be protected from lead paint poisoning. We passed a law 1,000 years ago. It didn't work as well as it should have. Not saying it wasn't, it didn't have some effect, but it should have been more. The lead paint registry law is designed to get those recalcitrant landlords to get their act together and get their properties fixed up. The reason why it's aimed at the rental world instead of single family homes is a trade-off. Yeah, in a perfect world, we would have, we would know for sure 100% every single structure in the state of Rhode Island is lead free. That is unworkable and untenable. The most bang for your buck is going after the rental market where somebody, landlord has 20 units. If those 20 units are designated lead safe and there's kids in those units, then you've achieved more protection there. We're looking out for the kids. It is a cost, but there are some things that are worth spending money on. This is one of them.
And in single family.
That's why I
homes-
voted yes for the bill.
And in single family homes, you guys who know more than me, the protection you're looking for does come through the education process. So
And there's
if
more of an incentive in single family homes because it's your kids.
That's what I'm saying, but,
Right,
but
right.
it's not like it's just left up to find out.
Somebody else.
There's an education process out there about making your home with your family safe, because if you didn't know about lead paint, yes, your child is very important. So it's not just that they're targeting rentals because they rent, it's because they aren't responsible for the building.
That being said, I've heard from constituents here in the district and Warren specifically, who have a heartache with this because they're trying to do the right thing and they can't find the lead inspectors and all that. But the crunch is starting to ease. And that person who really complained to me a year ago, a few months back said, Jason, I got it squared away. I didn't like it, but I got it squared away. I said, okay.
So no action can be taken tonight because of the ambiguousness of our agenda, but I will open to the public if anybody wants to come forward and share their ideas with us that they think the legislature would like to hear. Please feel free. Ma'am?
We live at the Warren Housing Authority, and
Okay.
we hear there is, I saw plans last week at our commissioners meeting about the change of the bike path. They want it to go down Libby Lane
No.
and through my backyard. I
No.
saw the
So,
plans.
correct. So there was a proposal by a developer that was hired to look at, that's a proposed plan. That's not anything
Okay,
that's being
all right,
acted
no.
on.
The
and
north
the
side,
housing-
they're
If I
not
can
gonna
finish
do.
answering you, the Housing Authority officially took a position and sent their position to the town of Warren, and we have received it. They don't want to be a part of that at all.
Okay, and did we have all our tenants signed a petition
That's
with me?
not needed.
Yes, okay, we just wanted that, we
Yeah,
didn't know.
that's
if
all we were here for. to
Had
make
got
sure.
that, we wanted to make
Because
sure. that
That's
my-
why I asked you to,
Theft and
spoken
all that
about.
other stuff.
that's why I asked you to come up, because if there was an issue that you wanted to let us know of, thank you. But to give you surety, if we ever decided to do that, we would be meeting with the Housing Authority and asking them. But all that Mr. Abruzzi was responding to was one component of the project development's possibility.
Okay.
Okay, I
Just
got one
checking.
more thing to
Okay,
mention.
go ahead.
He had mentioned about having the state take over the sidewalks and streets. I was out of this state for 45, almost 45 years. I come back and now Market Street and parts of Charles Street is still the same. Hasn't changed in 40 years. Why don't they get them to do that? Fix the friggin' roads.
We're trying.
It's been 40 years.
I am, so.
Charles
I'm not
Street
being-
was done.
I'm not being
Charles Street.
sarcastic. I'm saying we're trying, so.
Right.
The cost is usually the biggest factor
We
and
we do have, some of those areas are being repaved in the next couple of years. We
Yes,
had a-
they-
we had
Well,
a
I was
tip
told
grant.
last year that.
wait,
Market
everybody,
Street was-
please, rebuttal. We're not here to
But
debate.
I was told Market Street was going to be done this year.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to
That
say.
was from the Rhode Island DOT.
Sir.
I understand.
Okay, but I'm saying you can address your question to us.
Right, I am.
I mean, me, and what I'm gonna tell you is that you can call our manager if you want to get an actual specific calendar of what we've been told by the state.
Right.
But those are state projects, and what didn't help us any in our public communications
Mhm.
was National Grid did some work on Market Street,
Right.
and they repaved it. And that one section is giving us such a hard time because everybody wants to know why they did that and not everything
right.
else. That was our utility company fixing the road. So this year, I believe it's in the spring, Market Street is going to be paved and worked on. It's a state road.
All the way up to the state line?
Correct. And they're not going to be going from Schoolhouse to Malik's yet because we're having a real hard time getting the engineering that we need and the responsibility of the water problems that are there.
Mhm.
So that section, the engineering for that is delaying us right now, and we don't actually have a solid answer on that, other than that is what is holding us back.
Okay, I was just curious because 40 years gone by,
I hear
it's still
you.
the same.
I haven't moved out, neither is he, so us Warren stuck here, we know.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
for
thank
listening
you.
to my.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President,
Thank you.
before you close the meeting.
Oh,
may
well,
I-
Mr. Bolster put his hand up, so
Sorry.
then, yes, you can.
I just want to update you on a piece of legislation
Thank
that
you.
I'm working on. Thank you.
Mr. Bolster?
Good evening, everybody. Just on the affordable housing thing, because everybody's in the same room, which is great. Now that we've been sort of working with this for a few years and getting to see how the rubber meets the road with all this, it would be really great to see some more creative approach to all of this that maybe incentivizes the towns instead of the developers, or as a combination of incentives. And also that we strengthen the incentives to rehab or expand existing buildings, or to develop or redevelop fallow lands. As we finish our survey of the potential properties in Warren for these types of projects, it's pretty staggering how much land has been bulldozed and left fallow in this town. Acres and acres and acres. And they're owned by a variety of people. Instead of taking beautiful farmland or tearing down historic buildings or, whatever, the things that make Rhode Island beautiful and memorable and all that, preserving our history, I think it'd be great if we could somehow focus our incentives on the places that are already disturbed, destroyed, built, what have you, instead of wrecking the beautiful places that we have. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're gonna close, so anybody else, and last it goes
If I
to,
may just comment on Mr. Bolster's.
Absolutely.
I have put a bill in, I can't bring the bill number to mind. It's called a Housing Champions Bill. It's kind of a cute title, which provides just the kind of incentives that Mr. Bolster was talking about to give communities grants if they do the right thing, developing in places that are previously disturbed and so forth. It's a new idea in Rhode Island, so we'll see. Nothing usually works on the first time out, but we'll see. So incentives are in that bill. The other thing I wanted to let you know about, which will affect the town if it passes, Senator Feelag and I have put in a bill to prohibit the purchase of PFAS-laden turnout gear for firefighters after 2027. That would mean that if you need to replace the firefighters gear here, it cannot have PFAS in it, which almost all firefighter gear has, if you purchase it after 2027. So there's no money for that, but we have a minute to get the money. There's a PFAS lawsuit that the Attorney General has filed against the manufacturers, who of course were putting this in products without letting people know of the danger. So there is a hope that, thank you. There's a hope that I would like to pass this bill this year that puts the ban in place and then work on getting the funding, but that's certainly something. I think it's $16 million statewide to replace all the turnout gear for firefighters, and I do not want that burden to be on the municipality.
What is PFAS?
Oh,
A chemical?
so it's called the Forever Chemicals.
Yeah.
It's a whole family of chemicals that make things waterproof or non-stick.
Like Teflon
Like
or
Teflon,
something?
exactly.
And, yeah, and
Is
it's
it-
in all of us.
Okay.
Is it readily available at this time? The non?
No,
This-
that's part of the problem.
Yeah, that's why.
Is that they're working on the apparatus equipment such that it'll be it, because Rep. Speakman and myself will put in the bill, it's $15.2 million for our volunteer departments and for our professional fire departments to have at least
No, I
one
mean, is it,
turncoat.
is it marketable? Do they make it? The
Just-
non-PF?
No, they're
Just
in
now.
the process.
Just now,
They just starting to come out with it, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So the replacement is just coming out?
correct.
Okay.
PFAS
So-
is cancer causing, endocrine disruptor, it's all the bad things. Sorry.
It's a bad thing that is serving, somebody thought a good purpose at the time.
That's right, exactly.
And I just wanted to throw out, since we're here.
Feel free.
Couple things that I'm working on. I try to keep my menu small.
No,
in
feel
the years
free. I
so
looked
that-
at the clock just to see.
No.
what time it
I
was.
try to keep my legislative menus.
Oh,
small so
okay.
that I can actually pass bills, try to get it in, get it through that process. So I just want to let the town know that I'm working on a couple bills. A big one is to add in, we have a revenge pornography statute, which is a really despicable thing that some people do. It makes it illegal to post intimate or indecent pictures of people without their permission, but it doesn't have a carve out for AI. So I have a bill to add in AI altered things for deep fake technology, that sort of thing. And I have a nursing home bill designed to allow nursing homes to see the complaint history of all the license holders working in the building. We've had some problems with bad apple CNAs hopscotching between homes, and we want to try to gain some visibility in the system for our nursing homes.
So their
particularly.
past doesn't follow them.
Yeah, the only thing that follows them is like an actual criminal conviction. But if you're the kind of person who got 1,000 complaints, then you walked away from the institution and they sort of washed their hands of you and said, "We'll let those complaints go. Just get out of our hair," and you end up at the next place.
Wow,
That's a problem. So I have a bill designed to get at that.
well, that's good.
And same as always, I am still working on an assault weapons ban to work on.
Okay. So, there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I had one more. but-
He wanted to talk so bad.
I thought you would-
I wanted
He
to ask
wanted to
for more,
talk so
but I
bad.
wasn't gonna fight it.